We're at Subscribe Star. So, Guardians of the Galaxies, Gillian doesn't get it. She comes out and does a little damage control for the critical theory folks. The new desexed Guardians of the Galaxy. So Hollywood is going in a certain direction, and I don't think that over the long haul that they're going to end up taking the audience along for the ride. So what happened was the Guardian poster came out. And if you take a look at it, it just kind of sits there. They're doing an '80s theme. I think someone pointed said it's kind of like a Breakfast Club sort of. I guess it doesn't really work because of Nebula, who they photoshopped to make her flat chested, but I mean, the background of the planets is cool. Absolutely flat chested. Like even a ballerina has more than this. A man's chest. But then they didn't taper the waist, so it just looks like a guy with a little bit of a beer belly. And that's not what the actor or the character looks like. And in the earlier poster, they photoshopped her in the other direction. They photoshopped. You can assume that everything on a movie poster is digitally enhanced somehow. It's not an issue so much, except it is now because they're doing a little bit of a gender bender thing, and people are. They made everyone in the poster just look kind of flat and uninspired. And then in the other images of the chicks in the movies, they're wearing like loose fitting jackets and pants and overalls and stuff. Like there's just not a lot of. There's just no spice. Like even with this, I forget this alien chicks. It's like there's nothing to look at. It's just a straight line up and down because they're like whatever curve she has, they're deliberately concealing. And you're an audience member. You can say, "Oh yeah, I don't want to see that. I want to see women looking like women." So Hollywood is totally into boys can be girls and androgynous, whatever, but nobody else is because they started going in this direction with stuff like the Bechdel test. It's something like the amount of time chicks get to speak on screen or something. Then they started detuning detuning the TNA, and the clothing got tailored to make everyone, or the women at least, look more boring and masculine. The men still have to be fit and in shape. They essentially rose T-code the chicks. They've got fundamentally different worldviews in the roles of what men and women are, and also storytelling because they're critical theory globalists. I mean, you got to say that often enough so people start getting that idea into their head and they start looking it up. I mean, there's a ton of videos on Gab TV, Odyssey, and Bit Chute about that kind of thing. Every film for them, every comic for them is just a vector to push their agenda. I heard an interview where some comic people were talking about, like, oh, the woke comics they're putting out aren't selling, and the people this was like a panel on YouTube or something, and there's a dozen of these people, and they go, yeah, that doesn't matter because it's just there to push our propaganda. Like they openly said this, and you look at them and realize. How are you in comics? It's like, well, that's what SJWs do. They worm their way into something. The 4-panel meme of you guys aren't diverse, inclusive, and equitable enough. We need to get in there. Then they take control, and then they kick out the original people. And you look, it's like, so you're like this universal blight. You go from galaxy to galaxy, destroying structure and order. Which I think that's from that sci-fi book. Anyway, the thing is, their whole everything for them is just if it's comic, if it's movie, it's just to push their agenda. Which you could say everything is a way to push agenda. Yeah, but old classical stories, if you're going to analyze them, deconstruct them, they're nationalist stories, they're tribal stories, and this new ones with these critical theorists are globalist stories. They want to destroy the family, destroy the nation. And then after the mass starvation that follows, war and collapse of society, they want to rebuild it under socialism, which oddly enough also causes war and starvation. But at least they're in charge, so it's a good kind of starvation. They would rather rule over the ashes in hell than serve in heaven. These people have no interest in heaven at all, and fair to say heaven has no interest in them either. It's important to just be frank with these people. You don't have to explain your reasoning. If you don't wish, you can just tell Hollywood what you don't want to support. The schism is that they're on board this application of critical theory to sex. It's just another pathway to destroy the family, which goes to the nation. We believe that men are men and women are women. And that's a far right, dangerous dog whistle. No, you people are just crazy. It's time more people just look at the left wing and say you guys have lost your mind. The family is the core of a stable nation, which sounds a little stiff and formal to say that. and obvious. But one time Hollywood would have agreed, but that was a long time ago, probably back in the 1950s. And there's a guy who wrote this article in the theory of it happened in 1963 ish, where I dream of Jeannie and Bewitched, I think, started coming out. And he says, if you can point to that time in Hollywood, before it was like Leave It to Beaver, and then it was, they started to slowly destroy the patriarchy and make the male, the pater, the figure to be lampooned and ridiculed. He was the comic relief, and that's not what you want to have. Where before I Love Lucy, it was the woman was in that position. You go, well, someone has to be in the position. Yeah, you don't put the head of the patriarchy in that position, because he has to be the leader of the family and the leader of the tribe, and like that's how the hierarchy works. And people hear that and it's like, oh, that's not very progressive. Yeah, but it forms a stable society. So if Lucy wants to be the silly one, and it's a little patriarchal relationship with her husband, it's like, yeah, but it works that way. And I mean, obviously it's a TV show. I mean, she was the one who was running the show. Anyway, yeah, things have changed quite a bit since the 50s. They say we have one joke, that they don't know what a woman is. I mean, except it's not a joke, it's serious, that in their worldview, words don't have meaning because they mean whatever you wish them to mean according to how you feel. That's why I say that I don't think there's a path forward for Hollywood, and why it's important to talk about this stuff, to shine a light at who they are, their actions, their Saul Alinsky rules, and their propaganda. Because I suspect that eventually people are going to realize that their family and Hollywood are going to have to part ways. You have values that are just so divergent. The classical silly stories that these comic book characters were coming from were pretty basic, exaggerated male and female forms. You had to be able to clearly identify who they were, with the colors you had available to you at that time of thing. It seems like a lot of things work together. The sexual binary, the strong male and female lead to the division of the sex roles, which create a stable society. The sacred male and female and baby form the holy human version of the Trinity. So the critical theorists go through and have to deconstruct all of that. They use government schools and the media to blur the lines in the sexual binary and the roles, which lead to confusion and separation from their blood families, so that they're encouraged to join these newfound families so that they're rootless and easily led. That's a cult technique. The left wing is a modern day cult. And if you start, if you're on the left and you start asking questions, you immediately feel that social pressure, and it's not a friendly place to ask questions. There's sacred cows on the left that will get you threatened subtly and then more openly. Yikes, my guy, bad take. It's like they're sending you these warnings that you're straying from the center of the herd. I've seen it happen to left wing people who start to leave the left by asking too many questions. Like, questions aren't welcome on the left. They have a narrative to maintain, and you're on board with that. It is not like the true definition of liberalism. That is not, liberalism is not a left wing concept now. Left wing concept is authoritarianism now. Because the thing is, 99% of the time, even if your family is weird, it's better to stick with your blood and your extended family. But if you hold the reins of film and TV, you can generationally brainwash people to do anything you want. I only say this because, in case you haven't noticed, they're doing things to kids now that I don't even think they did in that period of time about 80 years ago. It's better to just tell them via social media why you're not into their Bolshevik propaganda. A fun technique is to be deliberately obtuse, to just say that you want to see skinny, sexy chicks with boobs bouncing around. The Megan Fox thing from the Transformers movie where she's running through the desert. That's a movie that you can sell that movie overseas, because the translation doesn't matter so much. It's Megan Fox with her boobs bouncing around. That sells in pretty much any market. Or if you're a chick, you want to see fit guys, low body fat playing these kind of roles. That men shouldn't look like women. That women need to be sexy and subservient or whatever. Just toss out some, I'd like to see the ladies show a little bit more flesh. Toss out like all these like stereotypical 1950s cliches that never even existed back then. It's all a Hollywood lie, but it's fun to troll people on Twitter. Like, half the people having arguments on Twitter are having arguments based on straw man Hollywood versions of America that never existed even in the 50s. But all they know about a time period is what they learn from Hollywood, because nobody reads books. Just tell them that you're not into all this degenerate stuff. Put your ideas out into the universe, assuming that you're on an anonymous account, to let other people know that they're not alone, that Hollywood really is just a collection of the worst sorts of parasites. It's funny, even in this, her thighs are looking a little chubby in this. Anyway, they will ad hom you and tell you that these movies are not for you, which is true. But you want other people to also see the discussion that the Weinsteins in Hollywood are pretending to have the moral high ground and call you a Hugo Boss, bigot, incel, grass toucher, go outside, yikes my guy, or like whatever. If you dare to point any of this stuff out, the thing is, you want, or, like something like calling her thighs fat. Like it's fun. You do that on Twitter all the time, where so chicks like just 5 pounds. You could just say there's a little bit chubby, a little bit. Ah, yikes! She probably wants to drop them carbs, and it's like a needle scratch on the record when you say that in the wrong crowd, and you see these women just lose their freaking minds when you say that about a chick who's already skinny. I mean that's the fun of Twitter is to be the subtle troll. So you want other people to see that there is the option that Hollywood degeneracy isn't for them either. You want to put these ideas out in the universe. Because what they're pushing with the gender bender stuff is deeper than just a movie poster. It's a good thing to bring attention to it. They're pushing this critical theory propaganda. It's absolutely essential to name the problem and correctly frame the question, and you're already halfway to the answer. You got to talk about them, their technique. You don't want propaganda like this to go unchallenged. They deconstruct things. Well, we can deconstruct things also, as long as you're allowed on YouTube to break down what they're doing. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on next episode.